All right, gentlemen, this is going to be a test run of this on technology, which, if it's working, this could be pretty cool. So I'm going to do a run through of my Romans 12, 1 through 2 sermon from, I guess, March 2 months ago. But this is what you guys are going to have to do with your text on Saturday, June 7th. So I wanted to just kind of give you a quick demo. There's a lot more that could go into this, but I wanted to give you an idea of kind of how I came up with my sermon. Fair warning, this is from my memory, but I'm going to try to give you some idea of kind of how the sausage is made here. Because again, you're going to have to do this on Saturday, June 7th with some help. Okay? So Romans 12, 1 through 2. Just start here. So Paul, all right, so he's appealing to something. Whoops. Edit this. Said first time doing this, so forgive me working through this. So appeals, and he appeals to. Okay, so it's the first time there. To who? To you. Therefore, okay, brothers. That's interesting. Got a family reference there. What's going on there? Therefore, we know that's pointing back to something. So I've got to figure that out. If you go back and listen to the sermon, that was an interesting one because there are actually a couple layers to that. So I appeal to you, you being brothers. Therefore, that's pointing backwards. He also appeals by the mercies of God. It's interesting. So I appeal 1, 2. Then over here, we've got another 2 to present. More on that in a second. So first we have I called this the number 1, the basis of his appeal. All right, so he's appealing to them as brothers. He's appealing to them based on something he's already said in therefore, and he's appealing to them by the mercies of God. So question on that is, how's he defining? What does that mean? If you go back and listen to that sermon, one of the interesting things I found out was he doesn't use the word mercies until Romans 9, and then I think it shows up 6 times in Romans 9 through 11. So 3 different dimensions to that. I appealed to you, brothers being part of it, therefore the other part, and then by the mercies of God. Okay, so that's the first one. That was my first point. The second 2, he also appeals to them to do something. Okay, so they're to present what? Their bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. All right, so we got a couple things here. Present bodies. 1. As a living sacrifice. All right. Oops, let me go back there. Got ahead of myself. So you're supposed to present their bodies. Then we got a couple things that flow under that. So as a living sacrifice is one descriptor. That's not a word. Also known as an adjective descriptor. Holy and acceptable to God is another one that goes together. So there's the second one. You see that? Which is your spiritual worship. So the third phrase describing what it means to present your bodies. Oops. Backspace. All right. So that was the basis of his appeal. I think I called this was the actual nature of the appeal. All right, so that was verse 1. Then we get into verse 2 where he's talking about how this applies to our lives. So he gets into, do not be conformed to this world, but means there's going to be zoom in here, means there's probably going to be a contrast of some sort to follow. But be transformed. So do not be conformed. So this is a negative contrasted with but be transformed. Okay. All right, so that goes together. And then by the renewal of your mind. That's interesting. So now he's given so this section's almost what he wants is the end state. And this is the how, right? By the renewal of your mind. And then this would be that by testing you may discern. So you could almost call this the reward, if you will. I don't know if I like that, but you kind of get the idea. That by testing you may discern what is the will of God. All right, so this is kind of the reward. I would probably use actually in state over here for this third part, but I think you're still following. All right, and then what is good and acceptable and perfect. Those are all adjectives that actually just define the will of God. So at the end, he's actually saying, as a result of this, you will actually be able to see God's will is good, acceptable, and perfect. So that was very quick, very hasty. There's a lot more that went into this, but I wanted to at least kind of attempt to show you how I broke this up. So again, to recap, so my first point was up here in the brackets. My second one, brackets there at the end of that. And then third point there. So from there, I was able to put together an exegetical outline, main idea, and then from there, a homiletical. So more on that, but for right now, this was just kind of what my observation phase was. All right, gents, welcome back on to part 2. So I don't think the first part was probably going to be too surprising to you. The second part, if you are more of a visual person, this is probably going to be helpful to you. This is called phrasing. So you can do this with Greek or Hebrew if you know original languages, but you can do it with English just as well. So it's literally just undermining, kind of supporting words and phrases to the main phrase and just literally laying it out so you can visually see how words and phrases relate to each other in sentences and paragraphs. So quickly running through this. So starting in verse 1, I appeal to you, therefore, get my pen up here. Sorry, like I did know that was coming. All right, I appeal to you, therefore, right? We talked about that, you and brothers, right? But I appeal to you, therefore, that's one basis of his appeal. Brothers, the family aspect, you could say that's started with the number 2 for some reason. There we go. You could say the familial aspect is the 2, and then by the mercies of God. So that was the third element of his appeal, if you're counting the you and the brothers. Okay, and then just lining these up, I talked about how the 2 was significant, and then 2 down here, right? Kind of the basis of his appeal, and then the nature. If you just put the 2 right over each other, it's easy to see these, right? I put in parentheses, I appeal, because this is up here's the basis. Down here's the nature. To present your bodies. Present your bodies how? 1, as a living sacrifice. 2, holy and acceptable to God. This is really kind of, which is your spiritual worship. And this is interesting. If you line up the word your bodies and your worship, you probably don't remember this. In that sermon, I had a phrase. It was catchy for me. I'm not that creative. But where I said, we live in a time right now where our society screams, my body, my choice. And I said, this text is saying, the gospel says, your body, your worship. That's how I saw that in verse 1, just doing a phrasing here, all right? And then scrolling down to verse 2, do not be conformed, right? So again, this is the negative sense. to this world, but conjunction giving you the contrast. Do not be conformed, but be transformed. So the negative and then the positive. To be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. Why? That by testing, you may be able to discern what is the will of God. And when you line up the what and the what, you see this visually pretty easily. What is the will of God? Well, the will of God is good, acceptable, and perfect. Again, very quick, very hasty, but again, if you're more of a visual, kind of analytical mind, I have engineering background, so this is helpful for me to just kind of see it broken out like that. You can put the supporting sentences and phrases under the main parts of those sentences and paragraphs in a way that helps you to just see the progression of thought in that.